I was just 16 when I found out I was pregnant. In one moment, my world collapsed. My friends abandoned me, my parents turned against me, and society branded me a failure. But what they didn't know was that this was just the beginning of a journey that would transform me. Today, I'm not just a mom. I'm a voice for millions who've been told they'll never succeed. This is how I turned pain into power. At 15, life felt full of infinite possibilities. My biggest worries revolved around which shade of nail polish to choose, or whether my crush would notice me at the school dance. I dreamed of being a journalist, traveling the world, and telling stories that mattered. Stories of hope, courage, and transformation. Every page in my diary was a roadmap to a future that felt within my grasp, filled with ambition and youthful confidence. But the world has a way of shattering dreams when you least expect it. The day I met Ryan, everything changed. He wasn't like the boys I'd grown up with. He was older, more worldly, and, to me, impossibly charming. At 19, Ryan seemed to understand life in a way I couldn't yet grasp. He would listen intently when I spoke, laugh at my jokes, and assure me that I was special. Coming from a chaotic household where my parents barely noticed me between their arguments, his attention felt intoxicating. In those early days, I was completely swept up. Ryan would pick me up after school in his old car, and we'd drive for hours, talking about dreams and futures that, at the time, seemed so bright. I trusted him with everything: my thoughts, my fears, my heart. He was my escape from the noise at home, my refuge when the world felt overwhelming. But what seemed like a fairy tale turned into a nightmare. When I saw the positive pregnancy test, my hands trembled. How could I be a mother when I was still a child myself? Telling Ryan was even harder. He stared at me in silence before muttering, "I'm not ready for this." And then he walked out, leaving me to face the storm alone. If telling Ryan was hard, breaking the news to my parents was a nightmare. My mom cried hysterically, pacing the living room, while my dad sat in his armchair, staring blankly at the wall. Finally, after what felt like hours of silence, he turned to me and said, "You've ruined everything. Don't expect us to clean up your mess." His words hit like a dagger to my chest, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. From that moment on, my once warm and chaotic home turned icy and unrecognizable. Meals were eaten in silence, and my parents barely acknowledged my existence. My mom would occasionally glance at me with a mixture of pity and disappointment, but my dad's eyes were full of nothing but disdain. I was no longer their daughter. I was the embodiment of their shame. Life became a series of losses. At school, my friends drifted away, their whispers following me down the hallways. One girl, who I thought was my best friend, told me, "We just don't have anything in common anymore." Teachers looked at me with a mix of pity and disdain, as though my future had already been written. At home, things were no better. My parents, overwhelmed by disappointment, offered no support. I took a part-time job at a diner, where I spent my shifts dodging judgmental glances from customers who assumed they knew my story. The night Ethan was born, I held him close and whispered, "I don't know how we're going to do this, but I promise I'll never let you down." But promises were easy to make and hard to keep. The reality of motherhood hit me like a tidal wave. Ethan cried constantly, and I had no idea how to comfort him. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. One night, after hours of his screaming, I collapsed on the floor, sobbing into my hands. I felt like I was failing him myself and everyone who had ever believed in me. One day, while scrolling through my phone during one of Ethan's rare naps, I came across a blog written by a young mother who had defied the odds. She had finished school, started a business, and was thriving. Her story lit a spark in me. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let my circumstances define me. I mapped out a plan. 1. Finish high school. 2. Get a stable job. 3. Create a life for Ethan and me that no one could take away. This wasn't just about proving others wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of more. The path forward was anything but easy. Every morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. to feed Ethan before rushing to school. I carried a diaper bag alongside my textbooks, enduring the stares of classmates who saw me as a cautionary tale. One day, my math teacher pulled me aside and said, "You're smart, but you're not applying yourself." I wanted to scream, "Do you know what my life is like?" Instead, I nodded and promised to try harder. Financially, we were hanging by a thread. I worked nights at the diner, earning just enough to cover diapers and formula. My wardrobe consisted of secondhand clothes, and I often went without meals so Ethan wouldn't have to. The hardest moments were the nights when Ethan was sick. I'd sit by his crib, taking his temperature and praying he'd be okay, knowing I had a test the next morning. Graduating high school felt like climbing a mountain. As I walked across the stage, holding Ethan in my arms, I saw my mom wipe away a tear. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to support I had felt from her in years. But I knew that a diploma wasn't enough. I needed more to provide for Ethan. I applied to community college and spent hours searching for scholarships, determined to make education my way out. In college, I started to notice how isolated young mothers like me felt. The system seemed designed to push us out rather than lift us up. That realization fueled a new purpose. I began writing about my experiences online. What started as a personal blog quickly grew into a community. Young moms from around the world reached out, sharing their struggles and triumphs. Their stories inspired me to do more. I started organizing meetups for teen moms in my area. Together, we shared resources, offered childcare, and supported one another through the challenges of balancing school, work, and motherhood. Today, I'm the founder of a nonprofit organization that empowers young mothers to pursue their dreams. We provide mentorship, childcare, and financial assistance to those who need it most. I've spoken at conferences, met with policymakers, and even lobbied for better support systems for young parents. But my greatest achievement is seeing Ethan, now 10, look at me with pride and say, "Mom, you're my hero." Looking back, I realized that my journey wasn't just about survival. It was about transformation. I turned the pain of my past into the foundation of a brighter future, not just for me, but for countless others. No matter how dark things seem, there's always a way to find the light. If my story inspired you, please like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, every challenge is an opportunity in disguise. See you in the next video.